Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is stream number 34. I'm joined by Shawn, CTO and co-founder of PolyAI. Before Shawn introduces PolyAI and everything they're working on there, let us know where you're listening in from, whether you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, or X. Let us know in the comments and let us know what you're building with SurrealDB or with PolyAI or anything interesting that you're working on. Shawn, great to have you here on the stream. Give us an introduction to PolyAI and also what you're working on with Agent Studio.
Great. Well, thanks, Tobie, and nice to meet everyone here. So my name is Shawn, co-founder and CTO of PolyAI. So PolyAI is building voice agent for enterprise contact centers. We have been working with some of the very large enterprises to actually automating phone calls. And we've been historically focused on voice agents, but we are expanding our product line into chat multi-model, and then we are releasing our developer platform and APIs as well in the coming year. So excited to be here.
It's great. It's great to have you here. I think we're seeing a lot of projects or a lot of organizations building with AI. A lot of people trying out new technologies, and there's a lot of failure with AI right now as well, right? And I think that comes down to exactly what we're going to be talking about today, which is sometimes not using the right tool for the job in question. I think the first question, PolyAI is in customer AI, so customer support AI, and specifically with voice. I think it's really important, therefore, that speed, performance, latency is a core part of what you're building. Can you tell me a bit? Tell the listeners, the viewers, how much of a focus it has had to be for you, and kind of what are the challenges you've had?
Yeah, definitely. So I think building voice agent. I mean, we have been studying building voice agent even before large language model came along, right? So it has been a long journey, and through these several years of iteration, we see technology change a lot, and the model continue to improve. The requirements of AI, on the market has not really changed that much because everyone has the expectation that AI just needs to be as good as humans, because we are always thinking about automation replacing human for a certain level of their job. But human is so versatile, right? And it's not just about the performance or accuracy you see on those kind of public data sets. It's really about how you interact with people, and all these small cues matters a lot. And yeah, I think historically we've been focusing on voice agent, which adds quite a bit of complexity to it, because over chat now the most popular model is this reasoning based model, right? You can click a button, prompt it, and then you just wait for a couple of seconds for the response to get back. That doesn't fly with the voice conversation. If I go dark on you over the phone for more than 5 seconds, you will be like, oh, what the hell is going on, right? So it's a very different kind of modality, and people have very different expectations. So yeah, latency is one of the major things that is very important when building voice agents. Performance and accuracy, and whether the agent can actually do the things that you wanted to do for you, is very important. And there's also a lot, when it comes to the enterprise level, is like, does the AI, even the AI is doing what it is supposed to do, is it actually generating ROI for me, right? It's about, if I automate, if I have a higher person who's doing that job, but is that particular job delivering the value for me as well? So these are all these different questions you have to ask at different level.
Yeah, I'd love to jump back to that point you made about accuracy, because that is one that a lot of people overlook, right? We're building systems that feel more and more human-like, but we can't necessarily guarantee that accuracy. So I'd love to come back and talk to you about that in a minute. As you're working with customers and organizations at PolyAI, how often do you see contact centers not having a kind of well-structured or centralized knowledge base in order to to help answer and help solve those questions for the customer?
Yeah, almost every single one of them, to be frank with you. And this is the same situation from like small to large organizations. Because if you think about contact center is, you would hire people, you would train people up, and people is very good at digesting, unstructured information, right? So then, maybe people, put together a training program in Google Doc and then move into Microsoft Words, and then some people compile it into PDF, right? It's usually not structured, and those kind of instruction kind of evolve over time. And if you have a new manager coming in, they probably change the process, and then so on and so forth. And historically, contact center has been existed for a very long time, right? It started with when we started to have the telephone support, which is like the primary form of support in the starting from the late 19th. And then now we're moving more and more to the digital. So the entire digital thing, or the entire like SaaS product, is a concept that only come along very, very late down the line. So it kind of takes quite a lot for an organization who has already running a support like this for like 20, 30 years to start thinking about, okay, I have to digitize everything. You heard about these like cloud transformation thing, right? Internet hits in 1999, but then the concept of cloud and moving into cloud only happened in 2006. So yeah, there's always that lag, like enterprise just like moving things a lot slower than you think.
Interesting. How fast, is obviously a side question, how fast do you think the enterprise are moving today? Obviously cloud came along and enterprises are 10 years behind, but today, your experience in the last 12 months, how fast do you think enterprises are moving this time?
I think everyone, because information is actually flowing quite freely these days. I think everyone knows how important AI is. So I think that a lot of the enterprises, no matter they are large, small, or new, they have already experimenting with AI. But it depends on which department, right? Because they always have some departments that are much more like, leaning forwards towards innovations. But customer support is always like a sector that's like a lot harder, especially I think the voice space, because the voice usually you have to work with a lot of legacy systems, so it's a lot harder to innovate there. But I think a lot of the companies already innovate with the digital channels, so chat, for example.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think the customer support function of a business is something that people often don't put the first thought into, but it's probably one of the most important ones for the to deliver the success of the business over the long term. In terms of coming back to that point about accuracy, how I think touching on this in two different ways. There's accuracy from the technical side of things, and there's accuracy on the data, and that probably resides more with the organization. But how does an organization work towards getting better accuracy and therefore getting a better result in their AI, specifically for customer support or voice? And how does that relate to the knowledge graphs or knowledge bases that they're using?
Yeah, so I think when we talk about the accuracy, there are two accuracy, right? But I think that the part that you are interested in is probably about the actual accuracy of the process that they have been documenting and then digitalizing. Usually, what we are seeing is that if an organization has already moved into cloud or already start thinking about moving into cloud, these are usually the organization has a lot stronger digital footprint. And then usually the data source is a lot more reliable and accurate. And that's usually just like, because you started to have like CIOs and CTOs to think about, okay, how do I, change the way we do things previously to in a way that there's a single place of truth. And I think that is usually a strong signal. However, as I say, like a lot of the contact center we work with, we usually have to work with them to get the accuracy of the content. And it's actually very interesting, doing the AI automation, it's sometimes giving them a chance to really think about this deeply, because historically, if it's just like human operating with the process, the document can be flying around, and then things can be done still. But I think with AI agent, we all know that providing context to the AI is very important, and usually the differences between a good AI agent and a poor AI agent is really about the context and the information you provided to them. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we mentioned at the beginning briefly Agent Studio, and I think this comes back to that point quite well, because you're talking about bringing context in, right, from additional services, third-party services, and the more context you can build up, the more knowledge, as it were. Exactly the same for a human. The better responses, the better accuracy, the better quality you give as an organization. Talk a bit about Agent Studio and why this kind of what is that bringing that we didn't have before, that you didn't have before, and why it does that.
Yeah. So Agent Studio as a product is really a platform for developers who build the AI agents for the contact center use cases. And then we actually optimize it quite a lot for the voice agent use cases, because that's kind of our bread and butter. But you can also use it to build chat as well. And then there's a lot of functionalities comes with it, because first of all, it's a model agnostic platform. So we integrate it to a lot of different LM models and ASR models and TTS models. We have obviously our own internal models as well, but we are not so adamant about which model you use. But because I think each model has its own context you can use. So give you an example is that we have optimized our NVIDIA powered speech model for a very long time. Its recognition on the English accuracy is pretty high. It's also really fast and efficient as well. But there are some cases you wanted to use other third parties, just because, when we are making outbound call, for example, on the other side, it could be someone speaking English or Spanish. It could be a robot picking up a call, like a traditional IVR assistant, or a human picking up a call. So we found that in this kind of particular case, there's this Mistral ASR model, which is really good for that. So you kind of find different strands of different models in different places. So we are, because we wanted to be the platform of helping you to stitch all these agents together. So model agnostic is a very important principle. Another thing is we wanted to integrate into the existing workflows that enterprise is already using. So the degree of flexibility when it comes to integration is very important. No matter is traditional REST API or is the MCP that you wanted to integrate with the agent, we can support that as well. So to your point, we do actually have a couple of customers actually mentioned about using their external data sources, and that does actually happen in a couple of cases. However, the thing is that it always have a question that whether those kind of external knowledge base is actually fit for voice agent use cases, because we will come back to it, is that the latency is always a very important issue, because that means that you need to do another round trip of fetching of information. And if that knowledge base source is not optimized for efficiency, then the latency of the voice agent would end up being quite high.
Yeah, I was going to jump onto that question next, because we've all been there from the early 2000s, probably even to just a couple of years back, where you go through that IVR system when you're calling into a company, and it's just it feels awful.
That's right,
and that's not even live support, right? So how do you ensure? And first of all, what parameters are you trying to kind of stay within in order to provide a great experience for, especially voice, right? Chat is important as well, but less important because people are more kind of open to that delay. But especially when it comes to voice, what are the parameters you're trying to stay within, and how do you stay within that latency?
Yeah. So in general, because we deploy a lot of different voice agents in the wild currently, I mean, arguably, majority of the support lines when you pick up a call, it's probably still traditional IVR assistant. It just tells you that, although like so many people are so excited about AI, we're actually not quite there yet. There's still quite a lot to be done there. And to answer your question, the kind of parameters we are trying to stay within is that every round trip time, the conversation over the phone needs to feel very ping-pongy, right? Like, I serve you the ball, and then you return me back immediately. And roughly, we're seeing that you probably wanted to keep it under 1 to 1.5 second. That's probably like the best kind of like area. You can go above a little bit if there's some long API calls or whatever. But then anything go beyond like 2 second, 2.5 second, it started to feel a little bit clunky.
Yeah. I was just let me look at the comments from LinkedIn. No, got no comments at the moment. People listening in, let us know where you're listening or watching from, and what you're working on or what you're building. Hang on a second. Apparently my mic has just switched. Okay. In terms of a kind of aspect of voice that I think people don't really think about as well, it's not just that kind of question response. It's also the ability to interrupt and to, add context in the middle of something that the AI is doing. Is that something that's more achievable? And how do you bring external knowledge bases into that aspect as well?
Yeah, and this is the kind of feature that we call barging, right? So I can interrupt you in the middle of the conversation, and then you can stop and listen to what I say, and then later on, like you can have more context later. This kind of feature is very possible these days. However, what we found is that the current technology is still not mature enough yet. The problem is that all these like voice activity detection, they currently predominantly operate at the signal level. So they only look at the waveform of your speech and making the decision whether this is the end of the speech or this is actually the start of the speech. But those kind of prediction model is not very accurate because it is not factored in the so-called like semantic context into it. So for example, if I'm saying that, hey, my name is Shawn, and then I pause a little bit, that I probably have not finished it yet because I'm about to say my last name. This is an example. And then the agent now will struggle with that. You can go on to ChatGPT 5, you can try their for the voice mode. If you do that, they would struggle. There's another test we did is that you prompt the voice mode to say, hey, now I'm going to count from 1 to 10. You should stop me when I'm at 5, right? And you will see that the agent will not interrupt you at 5 because it doesn't understand that context yet. And that is, I think, the next generation of the voice agent we will have to handle is by baking in these semantic cues into the decision making of the interaction.
Slightly off topic, but do you think that's possible with networked kind of cloud-based AI, or is that going to have to move to edge-based AI where the inference is happening right there without a network call?
It's a good question. I think it's possible. I think because currently all these like agents are actually streaming based as well. So you need to streaming, and then it's all moving to event based architecture. I think it's possible because those inferencing can be done in a quite efficient way. Because you technically need to make a binary decision at for every waveform that you receive, and then you can already pre-compute the previous context. So yeah, I think that's possible. But I think it's a very difficult problem in the sense that it's so difficult to collect this kind of data, because like collecting the training data is a tricky bit, for these kind of problems.
Definitely. So taking a step back again to Agent Studio, this enables organizations to bring their own knowledge base, their own data into the system. What additional functionality? So obviously RAG is. If you haven't heard of RAG and you're working in tech, then you've missed out on this whole year, right? But what's a step beyond that, and what's needed next and it comes back to that accuracy, and latency, I guess, because some things you can't do with RAG, but also some things just take too long. So what's the next level, and what is needed in the knowledge base layer?
Yeah, so when you think about the knowledge base there, right, we usually talk about this kind of like large data source you wanted to bring into the voice agent. And because then by nature it's large, That means that in order to actually achieve short latency in a runtime, because LM inferencing, even with the fattest self-hosted open source model, probably take 200, 300 milliseconds, right?
Yeah.
Another TTS compute will probably take 400 milliseconds, and with ASR, you probably take another 100 or whatever. So all these combined is close to 1 second already. And then you wanted to bring an external source, which adds the network latency,
Yeah.
plus that you kind of need to do RAG really efficiently, right? So that your vector search need to be ready to go. So you are looking at this entire large knowledge source. You kind of have to pre-process it and then embed it into vector space to begin with, and then you need to think about how fast you can do those kind of searches. So I think this is like predominantly the parameter you are playing with.
Yeah, exactly. So SurrealDB and PolyAI enables users to hook an external data source in.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, what made that a 20-minute project rather than kind of a larger scale, long-term thing that has to be planned and built?
Yeah, I think we work with a lot of these different knowledge-based source providers, right? So for example, Zendesk is one of our investors, also a partner as well. They have their Zendesk knowledge-based solution. A couple of our customers are using them, and integrating with that is actually relatively easy. But they don't have a in-house RAG module that you can directly leverage. So in that case, we typically have to map those knowledge source into our agent studio, and then we are running the RAG module in-house ourselves. Some customers, when they wanted to bring in a knowledge source, they would, so for example, if they work with Microsoft or Amazon already, there's already a vector search functionality, so we can just do a API query, send the query over, and then the compute can happen from the other side. So there are different integration patterns. I don't think we have a very common integration pattern yet when it comes to this kind of like RAG and agent integrations.
Yeah, I guess adding to that latency is the aspect of needing to continuously keep that knowledge graph up to date, right? So
Correct.
keeping that vector store up to date, continuously pulling, because it's all about context, as you said at the very beginning, right? So having the most recent context in your chat, having the most recent context from other issues that have been solved for other customers, and bringing that in. So how does that? How do you solve that in ensuring that it's continuously real time, as it were?
Yeah. I think that's really one of the most annoying part of all of this is that where is the single place of truth, right? It's if the single place of truth is in that external KB, then that would means that ideal case is that the external vendor can also just do the vectorization of the entire KB, and then pre-compute everything. So ideally, there should be just a REST interface for us to send a query over and get a result back. And then the entire management and iterating of the knowledge base could just happen on that vendor. This is probably the cleanest and the easiest way. But then there are situations where the vendor's solution is actually not fast enough. So in this case, because if the solution is actually for document retrieval for internal IT use cases, the latency could be unacceptable for voice agents, and it's probably not in the vendor's incentive to optimize for that as well. So in that case, we kind of have to find the alternatives to the solutions. A lot of times, we will just ask our clients to say, hey, we just may do a dip of the knowledge base and then mirror that knowledge base to us locally. But that creates a problem is, when does the sync of the knowledge base happen? And then how do you, if you have multiple agents and you are running multiple vendors as well, how do you manage that relationship between them? It becomes a bit more complicated. So we usually like to suggest to our customers that either you host your own knowledge base in the external source with a really reliable, fast, vector search solution, or we would suggest they bring their knowledge source into our Agent Studio platform, because we have the first party solution for that as well.
And that makes sense, right? It sounds like you're having to reinvent many aspects of that wheel, because
That's right.
that, the components that are out there don't necessarily live up to the needs, the requirements of voice, especially, but customer support more generally.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly.
Regarding the Agent Builder SDKs, APIs, is there any considerations you had to do, make there specifically because of of the requirements of voice and the platform as a whole?
Yeah, so I think the effort that we are putting into the developer platform is that because historically our platform is more closed in a way that it's only our existing clients and our internal team is actually building on top of the agent, because we have been gone quite upmarket and very focused on the enterprises. But then we found that there's actually a lot of activities that's happening in the developer community, which I think people are building a lot of very interesting voice agent use cases, and we are seeing that that's actually a very great market that you can study to brainstorm a lot of these good ideas from there. So therefore, that's the initiative where to open up that the platform for the developer community. And I think our platform itself is actually highly configurable. So there's like a lot of integrated integration you can already do as well. So I think the primary goal is to be able to shoot this developer community, and then started to learn from a wider community, because we are focusing too much on the contact center use cases, which is like your traditional inbound and customer service use cases. We are seeing a lot of the developers are building very interesting outbound use cases for lead qualification, telemarketing, and things like that. So we wanted to also learn from that communities as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to jump forward a little bit to, obviously when you're dealing with customer support, governance is an important aspect, but it's not just about governance. So one thing we're working on at SurrealDB is the ability to time travel through your data.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to know more about kind of the requests that you get. What are the requirements that people have around, because there's obviously in the AI world right now, we're dealing with massive data sets, and we're grouping more and more data together in these centralized knowledge bases. And with you, in order to make that work efficiently for the requirements of voice specifically, it has to, as you've said, has to be either shipped to your internal platform, unless that performance can be attained externally. What are some of the requests you're seeing around that data governance, data versioning, security and permissions and access? What are some of the requirements that people need as you especially as you work with bigger organizations?
Super important. And it is because that now, if you think about this AI agent, although it becomes the case that you don't have to write code anymore, you just prompt the agent to do it. But now, modern days, these AI agent prompts has grown really, really large. And there's a lot of different subpart of the prompts as well. So those prompts are effectively evolving into a new programming language, right? So any touch of the prompt is very important. And usually, how the external knowledge source is leveraged is that you will basically embedding those knowledge source into the prompts as well. So it becomes a part of your programming, so to speak. So then whenever you have an agent deployed like that, you wanted to trace back what happens. It's not just about in your code and your prompts. That also happens in your knowledge base as well. And then if you are feeding the wrong knowledge source or the outdated knowledge source, that directly impacts the performance of your agent. So this is super important thing. We have to build our first party solution, basically treating the entire knowledge base as part of the entire project anyway, and it's versioned accordingly based on the evolution of the content. So it is a must-have, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's say an organization wants to go and kind of, work out their own models and do this themselves.
Yeah.
What are the challenges right now for that? Even if you're building on AI, and how does PolyAI just, what's the time difference between an organization building themselves rather than going off the shelf?
Very good question. I think these days, if well, it depends on your purpose, right? If you are building a foundational model company, then you should probably build your own model anyway. But I wouldn't recommend to do this now because the market is probably quite saturated right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think predominantly a lot of people, when they are thinking about whether they want to own their model or not, they are typically building an application, or in modern days, people call it agentic AI, right?
Yeah.
If you are building application, I think it would probably makes more sense to validate the idea first, because you see that the MIT report says that 90% of the AI agents are not delivering value for enterprises, right? It just means that you kind of have to go for that end outcome first. You need to validate that first, because like whatever technology or solution they're using underneath almost is not so relevant, because you need to make sure that AI does actually bring value for your particular use case. And don't overestimate how much you have to tweak before you go put production, because LM is amazing. It gets 70-80% of the things done. But then once you wanted to deploy a large volume, very dependable use cases, sometimes it just doesn't really hit the mark exactly. So you should go for any third parties, any help you can find from the underlying technology. Try to directly build the application to validate the business outcome. If that works well, you can optimize the entire pipeline later on, like go with cheaper solutions, open source models, because all these things eventually will become just like an optimization. But getting that business outcome first, I think, is the most important thing. So I don't think you should train your model right away.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely agree with you on that one. I think the points you raise are also probably one of the reasons why a lot of these large-scale enterprise AI development projects are not succeeding, right? Because yes, you can get a long way, and AI can help you speed that up nowadays, but you still got to have that really fundamental understanding. And if you're coming back to a problem like you're solving at PolyAI, you have to have a really good grasp of every aspect of that a kind of back-end chain in the tech, the underlying tech, to make that happen. And it goes without saying, you put a lot of thought into this, a lot of development on top. In terms of vendor lock-in, how does the agent builder enable people to to obviously keep their data, but enable them to move or rebuild in the future if that's what they want to do?
Yeah, I think a lot of enterprises actually really adamant about vendor lock-in, and I think that's what they learned from the past, is that they don't want it to basically, because the technology is evolving so fast, so people don't want it to lock in with a particular model provider or a particular system or particular product, for example, just because people are afraid of that. The best today may not be the best tomorrow, right? I think that's a completely legitimate. I think for whichever company is actually operating in the space, that's unfortunately just an additional thing that we need to make sure that we build for that requirements. So we build in a lot of these requirements to make sure that the client doesn't feel they are locked into a particular vendor. Like in our cases, that our agents are composed of prompts and functions, like lambda functions. Technically, you can download the entire project. You can also try to deploy that system somewhere else as well. It's not that straightforward, but it's not impossible. It's just what I'm saying, and I think that's just something we will have to do. And And also people want modularity, right? So even though if I'm partially locked into you, I can at least keep some of the module elsewhere. And that's where the knowledge-based conversation come up quite a lot as well. At least,
Yeah.
if they don't have to shift it to a first-party solution, then, they can guarantee less of a vendor lock-in in that case. So
Absolutely. So the ability to switch out models, obviously switch out prompts, control elements of the process. What needs to stay stable at that knowledge base layer? And also, what's the next step? Let's say you've kind of succeeded with RAG up to a point. You now need to go a step further in terms of getting more accuracy or getting more performance, or you want to kind of get better insights into data. What's that next step in the knowledge base layer that an organization can kind of go after?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think the next step for the knowledge base layer. I think it's just a little bit more standard. I think because currently people are kind of doing a lot of different ways when it comes to
Yeah.
knowledge base integration. There's not a open standard of like what is the best way to do this. There's also like an ongoing conversation in the foundational model communities that as the model becomes stronger and stronger, maybe RAG is no longer needed in the future because you can technically fit in the entire context there. I think it's still a bit too early because the model, even though the model can fit in the entire context, the performance of those models with a large prompt is really degrading a lot. So it's just like, I think some people are talking about that, but I don't think RAG would actually go away anytime soon. It's just like in some of the smaller applications you build, if your knowledge base is not like crazy, like several thousands of documents, you can probably go away without you using it. So I think primary thing what I'm thinking is the standard. Like if there's like a standard way of plugging in, plugging out, then it will be making everyone's life easier. But I don't think that is going to happen because it's intentional by the design that uh, each company still wanted to have their own control of that particular part because that is a very important piece for the enterprises.
Yeah. So what do you see changing in 2026? Is it, and I totally get your point about RAG, albeit I think it's really important that, coming back to my point earlier about real time. And, if you're continuously keeping up that data up to date, then yeah, you could push that into a model as a kind of giant prompt, but it becomes harder and harder. So I agree. But what's going to be the big focus, do you think, in 2026 for people to keep seeing success or to make their AI projects a success from just a kind of trial?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I think 2025, as people say, is the year of agentic AI. I think now we are in December, right? Almost end of the year. I don't think we are seeing enough of the enterprise adoption yet. I think that we have a couple of like really exciting consumer applications, and a couple of these consumer-facing companies are doing very successful. It's because consumer has a lower bar, when it comes to accuracy. And I think consumer can kind of adapt to that. If you know that ChatGPT is going to hallucinate from time to time, you can be more extra careful about those content. And those content are still going to be very useful for you anyway. But I think for enterprises, is a lot more challenging because then they are going to put their name on the line, and therefore they are still a lot more careful about adopting these kind of like agentic applications, especially for consumer facing use cases. I think 2026, what I would say is I think we will continue to see progression on this front. From our sales pipeline, we are seeing people are gaining more and more interest. The deal is moving faster. Then we are getting into more opportunities as well. So it is happening, and I think more people are willing to try. And then we also see some of the more careful companies like financial services or healthcare started to drop their requirements for those because I think people would just have a little bit of FOMO overall, right? However, how successful we will see in the actual production adoption, I think it's still yet to be known. I think it depends on the implementation practices. It depends on, whether people are focusing on the right things. I think, it's a right thing that people don't think about buying GPU, or what I mean is that each individual companies don't think about buying GPUs or building those models themselves, because they realize the most important thing is that, application, like, can I actually benefit from it. So I think people are investing in the right areas right now. We will see a lot more movement. I still skeptical about how much progress we will make, comparing to what newspapers suggest you. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. I know what you mean. And I heard one thing just earlier this week, which is, enterprises have always been 10 years behind. So, we've still got a number of years before that full adoption really kicks in. We're going to just got one short question and then a final question for you. So what is one misconception about bring your own knowledge that is wrong and should be stopped today?
Interesting. Yeah. Putting the knowledge that is wrong. Yeah. I think a lot of the enterprises are actually thinking about this a bit more prematurely, in the way that, what we heard usually the most for the company who wanted to bring their own knowledge base is that, I wanted to do chatbot, I wanted to do voice bot, I wanted to do email support, I wanted to do internal use cases as well. So I should have a knowledge base that is centralized first, and then so then I can support all these use cases. But then the reality is that majority of them don't have any of those channels yet, and then they just wanted to start with something. What I would suggest them just, why don't you just go with one use case first? Go with chat, and then to see whether chat actually solve your business problem. Go with a voice, and then see whether the voice channel actually solve your problem. Doing it one by one. Once you get to the second channel, the third channel, then okay, now clearly I'm getting a lot of value from AI. Now let's think about how do we make this a sustainable solution long term.
Do you think?
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Right. No, I think it's just like investing in the infrastructure way too early when you don't need it is probably something I would suggest to have a second thought there. And that's the business is very committed to those AI innovation. Like your CTO and CEO is telling you this is a 5-year plan, that we will have to do it regardless, right? Because a lot of these companies, they want to try out something, but they don't have the top level buy-in, but they are overly ambitious about what they can do. And then once they launch one AI, it doesn't work, the entire project got killed. Right?
Yeah. So succeed in small projects, don't over-engineer, and once you've seen success, move on and try and make that a global company-wide brain, as it were. Awesome.
That's right.
So finally, before we go, what is the first step, or the first things that you would like people to try out, or where should they start building as soon as they've after this session, or after they've watched this on YouTube?
Yeah, so obviously the SurrealDB is have a very good product solution. You guys should definitely check them out, and then we have these blog posts there. You should give it a read, and then how you can actually build a really good real-time voice agent. PolyAI is going to release our developer platforms in Q1 next year. So keep an eye on this space. I think we are going to ship a lot of exciting features there. You can give it a try, and we will bring in a lot of solutions there as well, so you can integrate with your existing tools and things like that. So yeah, keep an eye on this space, and I think there's a lot more exciting stuff that is coming next year.
Awesome, that's brilliant. And we'll be launching demos and examples that you can try as well. So that'd be
definitely, yeah,
that's gonna be great. Well, anyway, that brings us to the end of the stream. So, Shawn, great to have you on here. Really interesting to hear about your experience building an AI company today, and also the experience that you have with organizations who are building alongside and also using PolyAI. So it's been great to have you here today.
Good to talk to you as well, Tobie. Thanks.
Excellent. Yeah, it's been great, and looking forward to the launch in the new year.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Everyone,
right. Appreciate that.
wherever you are in the world, have a great afternoon, great evening, or great morning, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Have a good day.